Good morning. It's Monday, November 17th. Special episode day. This episode is going to cover the 20,000 pages of Epstein documents that came out last week, or at least some of those 20,000 pages. It is a pretty heavy topic, so if that's not something you want to listen to, you can safely skip this episode. There will be another episode in the feed that is covering the rest of the news. And now, the special episode. Inspector Gregory, quote, "Is there any other point to which you would wish to draw my attention?" Sherlock Holmes, quote, "To the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime." Inspector Gregory, quote, "The dog did nothing in the nighttime." Sherlock Holmes, quote, "That was a curious incident." That's an excerpt from The Adventure of Silver Blaze, an 1892 Sherlock Holmes story that's suddenly getting a lot of attention lately thanks to a 2011 email that Jeffrey Epstein sent Ghislaine Maxwell. In it, Epstein writes, quote, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump," end quote, noting that Trump spent hours at Epstein's house with a victim whose name is redacted, and Trump never once mentioned calling the police. In that Sherlock Holmes story, a key piece of evidence in the case is that the dog never barks, leading Sherlock to believe that the criminal was someone that the dog knew and trusted. Silence, in that case, was the biggest red flag possible. As you almost certainly know by now, last week, as the House gavelled back into order, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released 20,000 pages of documents from the Epstein estate that cover a range of topics, but continue to return over and over and over again to one figure: the President of the United States. A man who he was genuinely very close with. A man who, per Trump, he cut ties with in 2007 after a falling out because Epstein stole one of the girls who worked for him. Stole. That is the word he used. Quote, "For years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again, and I threw him out of the place. Persona non grata," end quote. Interesting wording then, even more so now. I want you to consider how hyper online Donald Trump is. He reacts to every single thing. This is a man who tweeted 9 times about the Kristen Stewart-Robert Pattinson breakup in 2012, including, quote, "Robert Pattinson is putting on a good face for the release of Twilight. He took my advice on Kristen Stewart. I hope," end quote. Also, quote, "Everyone knows I am right that Robert Pattinson should dump Kristen Stewart. In a couple of years, he will thank me. Be smart, Robert," end quote. Quote, "Robert Pattinson should not take back Kristen Stewart. She cheated on him like a dog and will do it again. Just watch. He can do much better," end quote. I don't know. I don't like any of those, but I also don't know which one I hate / like more. I think it's him referencing the premiere of Twilight, or also him saying, him talking as if he's talking to Robert Pattinson. We all chose sides, you know what I mean? And quite frankly, now, I'm happy for Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart. I feel like they both did better. Whatever. What a time. What a time on the internet. He tweets about everything. He bought a social media website. He did insurrection, and at that time, Twitter said, you can't do violence on our website. Now they're like, do more violence. But at the time, they said, you can't do violence, so you're out of here. And he said, forget it. I'm going to build my own social media website because that is how important to me it is that I am able to tweet my way through my feelings because I ain't never going to therapy. So he created, ironically titled, Truth Social so he could Temu tweet his way through it. He comments on everything. He is mentioned 1,000 times in these documents. He has posted a little about how this is all a hoax. He has not posted even once about the content of these 20,000 pages. The closest he has gotten is Democrats are back on their Epstein hoax grind again. He has not talked about anything else. The dog that did nothing in the nighttime, that was a curious incident. So now that we've all had a weekend with these 20,000 pages, what else has come out? Listen, 20,000 pages, no one can read that alone in a weekend. Well, someone probably can, and I'm very impressed by them. I cannot. Here is what collective journalism has found so far. More will come out. The most interesting thing is obviously the Trump stuff, but it is also fascinating because obviously Trump and Epstein had a falling out. And maybe Trump got over it, but Epstein very clearly didn't. I say maybe Trump got over it because there's an email later in 2017 after Trump is already the president. He's already been sworn in. He's been the president for a while. And there's an email from Epstein to someone else referencing that he possibly either had Thanksgiving with Trump or just saw him over that weekend. So it sounds like Trump got over it. But Epstein, it doesn't sound like he did, because based on these emails, it appears that towards the end of his life, Epstein may have been planning a major takedown of Trump. About 3 weeks before his arrest, Epstein's accountant told Epstein that he had just finished reviewing Trump's federal financial disclosure, calling it, quote, 100 pages of nonsense. There's a lot of references in these documents about how much of a fraud, a financial fraud Trump is. Just a fraud in general. Epstein, very clearly, they were frenemies. Let's just call it what it is. They were frenemies. Sounds like Trump liked him. Sounds like Epstein, towards the end, did not like Trump. Called him deranged, called him Mafia Don, called him, I'll get to it more later, but also often referenced Trump being a financial fraud. Epstein also emailed others asking for information on the lawyers representing Trump. In 2018, then New York Times reporter Landon Thomas Jr. texted Epstein to say that Trump was scaring the bejeepers, something, out of him now, and, quote, he could well tank global economy. Maybe it's time for you to jump in now, end quote. So they had already been talking. It sounds like, based on maybe it's time for you to jump in now, perhaps Epstein had already been planning to do that. Is that what those emails were about? Epstein's response to that text was this, quote, he feels alone and is nuts. I told everyone from day one, evil beyond belief, mad. And most thought I was speaking metaphorically. It's obvious he could crack. Stormy Daniels? Lies after lies after lies, end quote. After the details of his sweetheart deal came to light, someone texted Epstein to basically say it'll all blow over because what they're really trying to do is just get after Trump and bring Trump down. And Epstein's response to that was, quote, it's wild because I am the one able to take him down, end quote. I am the one able to take him down. Something I want to remind all of us is that these are not the so-called Epstein files. They are files and they are Epstein related, but these are not what the DOJ is holding on to. And before I say what I'm going to say, I want to remind you that this is a conspiracy-free zone, right? That is not what we're doing here. We do not do conspiracies on here's what's happening. A lot is happening, conspiracies are not. That being said, I do think that certain questions deserve answers. Donald Trump's friendship with Epstein is not a surprise. It was a known fact when he was elected the first time. That grab him by the tape, that one came out right before the 2016 election. He still won. He was reelected after doing a literal insurrection and having been found liable for sexual assault. And a very odd piece of news that broke on Sunday night before I went to go record this episode, while I was recording the other episode that is in the feed, Trump announced that he wants House Republicans to vote to release the Epstein files that the DOJ has. So that's the game he's playing now. Probably because he thinks we're not smart. He's playing 3D checkers. Not understanding that we understand that it has to go to the House and then the Senate and then to his desk. And will the criminal sign off for the crimes that he did to be investigated. Oh no, time will tell. He, I assume, did this because he knows that the House Republicans have the votes to let this go through anyway, and he just doesn't want to be shown to be wrong. He's on his back foot here. He does not know what to do. Think about everything in his past that voters know about, that Republicans know about, and they have been fine with. They've had no problem with any of it. The question has to be asked. What is in those files that they are willing to burn it all down for, to keep a secret? It has to be worse than this. It's worse than what got released in these 20,000 pages of documents. It is worse than this. Because we never see Trump on his back feet, except when it comes to these files. That is the only time that he cannot seem to react well. Like him or not, he can react in a way that makes his base believe him. That is just a fact about him. He cannot do it when it comes to this stuff. And so maybe, even after his death, these files might actually be able to do the thing that it appears Jeffrey Epstein was trying to do. Take Trump down. Because the White House is melting down. Trump has taken back his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene, pitting what was once the epitome of Madam MAGA against the rest of MAGA. What does that look like for the future of the party? Does she become someone on the outside looking in? Or can she try and use this as a power move? It is expected that 50 to 70 Republicans will cross party lines and vote this week to release the files in the House. Can Marjorie Taylor Greene get those other Republicans on her side? On Friday, Trump announced that he is directing the Department of Justice and FBI to investigate prominent Democrats who have been connected with Epstein, clearly not understanding that we don't care. For most people, it does not matter what political party you rock with. If you are accused of sex crimes, you need to be investigated no matter what. It's not that complicated of an idea. This could be deflection, or it could be a delay tactic. Oh, we'd love to release these files, but aw shucks, now they're part of an active investigation. If only you'd asked us sooner. Whew. But ask yourself this. If this were you, wouldn't you do everything you could to clear your name? In the end, the culprit in the adventure of Silver Blaze was the dog trainer. Someone who had earned the trust of the dog, not because he cared about the dog, not because he wanted to help the dog, but because he knew the dog would be useful one day. Is there any other point to which you would wish to draw my attention? To the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. The dog did nothing in the nighttime. That was the curious incident. Trump is rarely silent. So when he is, that is a bigger clue than anything else. And that's it. That's the news. This story is not going away anytime soon, and we can't let it. Don't be the person that says that none of it matters, because the fact of the matter is, it does. Morally and legally, it does. And we can pressure the government, not the president, but who cares? He lifts right out. The House and the Senate and the Department of Justice, who is an independent body, even though they act like the president is in charge of them, he is not. We can pressure them to do the right thing. And because I know that you will stay loud, because survivors and victims alike deserve our attention and our volume, and also because you know there's another episode in the feed that covers all the regular news and you're going to listen or watch that one as well, but more of the other thing, more the you're going to stay loud. Because of that, I'm proud of you.